Welcome. In this video I'm just going to show you how to install the Freedom VMS Client software and add a device. In this example I'm going to add an Amiga NVR device, but any supported device, it's very similar. So first we need to download the software if you haven't already, and to do that we go to the Freedom VMS website. So that's the URL there. And under downloads, and then select all downloads. Now there's actually two versions of Freedom Client, a 32-bit version and a 64-bit version. The very first one you see is the actual 32-bit version, which is generally the most compatible version of Freedom, and it's the one we recommend. There is a 64-bit version available too, and that's near the bottom of, if you scroll down, and this is the 64-bit version here. Now you usually only need to load the 64-bit version if the 32-bit version won't load on your system, or you're actually upgrading from an older version that was also a 64-bit version, or you require more than 2 live video monitor support. The 64-bit version supports 4 monitors as opposed to 2 on the 32-bit version. But I'm going to install the 32-bit version, which is the most common, so I'm going to scroll back up the top here and click on this option here. Okay, it's finished downloading, so now I can open my download folder, and here is the software. So I'm going to double click on the software. If you haven't got admin rights for your computer, you may need administration rights. Now I'm just going to click next, and you can read the license. Click on I agree if you wish, and I'm going to click next. And the software has now been installed, so I can close this window and I can go to my desktop. Now on my desktop here I've got now the Freedom Client icon, which is a green looking camera icon. I'm going to double click on that. When you first open the software there is no password, so you can just click on login. Now when you first open the software you're presented with the what's called the live view interface, which is what we're looking at now. Now this video isn't intended to show you how to use Freedom. There is a number of other videos for that, which I'll just show you the URL here, and that's available from the Freedom VMS website. So to learn more about Freedom, I suggest you look at these videos here. And I should mention while I'm here, the purpose of this QR code you see here in the front live view. This is actually so you can use your mobile device to go straight to the tutorial help page. So I'll just show you quickly how to do that on an iPhone, for example. Okay, so on the iPhone you do simply tap the camera icon, then you point the camera close to the QR code on the screen, and you should see a pop-up at the top of the window like you see here, and you simply tap on that pop-up and that takes you straight to the tutorial URLs. On an Android device you do need a QR reader app installed to do this. Now before we add the actual device or recorder to the Freedom Network Client application, there's a few things we need to make sure we have. There are a few requirements. Now firstly, the device that you're adding must be registered or licensed. This is usually done by your CCTV provider. Now if while attempting to add the device you get a message similar to the one you see on the screen now stating invalid device, this usually means one of two things. Either the device has not been registered or licensed, or your PC is using a proxy server or is unable to connect to the licensing cloud server to verify the license. Now you also need to know the IP address of the particular recorder that you're adding, and you need to know its TCP port, the local TCP port, and you also need to know a user account, so you need to know a username and password to add the device to the client. Now while you're adding the device to the client you do need to have an internet connection. The reason for this is it checks the license that your device is a licensed product. Now if you don't have internet connection on a particular PC for whatever reason, another method to do this is to add the device on another PC that does have internet connection, and if you've got any other existing devices on your site you also need to add those as well as any new recorders or new devices. And then you can save that configuration file and import it into the one that doesn't have internet access. Now if someone has provided you with a config file, you can import it into your existing client, and that will give you all the devices the other client had. Freedom config files have the .config extension, and to import a config, on the live view I click on the sandwich icon down the bottom here, the menu icon, and I click that, and then from this I select import system parameters. Then I browse for the location of my config file. As I said, in my case it's on the desktop, and it's actually called this one here, and you see it's got the .config extension, so I'm going to double click on that, and it's asked me to restart. I will restart Freedom, and if all is successful you should see some devices up the top right here indicating it has imported your devices successfully. And to test and see if they work, we can click on the plus and drag some cameras, and if all goes well they should appear. So that's how you import a config if someone's given you a config file. Now if you haven't been provided a config file to import into your Freedom client, you need to add it manually. Now to add a device we need to go into the setup part of Freedom, and you do that by clicking on the cog symbol down the bottom right here. So I'll click that, and then we have to click the device setup tab up the top. Now in Freedom there are two ways to add a device if you don't have a config file, and that is using the manual add method, which this plus icon is for, and the auto discovery method, which is this S option. We normally recommend the manual option because under certain network environments the auto discovery is blocked and doesn't work. So to manually add a device we just click on the plus, and now we're going to, on this side here, give our device a name. I'm going to call mine in DVR1. You can call yours whatever you like, and in my case it's an Amiga device, so from the device type I select Amiga, and we need to know the IP address which I've been given. So in my case it's 192.168.2.225, and I need to enter the TCP port that I've been given, which in my case is 37777, and I need a username and password to add the device. In my case I've been given a username of user and a password. Now while we are in user accounts I just want to point out something else. So the username in this case is using a limited user account, in this case called user. To get certain functionality from Freedom, the actual device needs to be added as admin. So while you can still view cameras live and play back using a limited account and back up, there are some things that won't work on a limited account. These may include time push. So if you want to time push using the Freedom client, that may not work without a full admin, the actual admin user account and the admin password of course. Also sometimes the camera list option, synchronization option, may not work without the device added using the admin account. I just wanted to point that out. But in this case I'll leave it as user if I'm happy with the details here. If I also had a public IP address, or this was off-site, I would actually populate this public IP section up here, and if I was off-site most of the time I'd change this to default instead of this option down here. So that was if I was off-site, but I'm on-site here, so I'm putting the local IP address in the private IP option and the TCP port in the private TCP port box. So I'm going to click apply now, and if successful the device will appear over here on the left pane here. As I previously stated, you do have to be on the internet for this to occur successfully, and you may need to bypass proxy servers if you're using a proxy server in some instances. So that has successfully added. That's always a good sign when you see it over the list up here. So now let's see if we can open our cameras. I'm just going to close this. Okay, now we can see if we can open some cameras to make sure it works. And in my case I have most of these cameras are blank, so I'm just going to try these ones where there should be cameras. So that seems to work okay. That's how you add. Now after you've added the device, there are actually a few options you may wish to configure that a lot of people like configuring, like camera groups. And you can also select one of the camera groups to start automatically when the software starts. So to create a camera group, you first select a tile layout of the quantity of cameras you want. Now I'd be a bit cautious here. I'd maybe start at a lower camera group number, like maybe 9, because depending on your CPU, some CPUs can't handle a great deal of HD cameras. So I'm just going to start at 9, and although I haven't actually got 9 cameras on this recorder, I'm just going to drag them to a particular tile. And obviously I'd drag more cameras. As I said, I've only got 4, but let's say I wanted that as a camera group. Now, before I lock that in, I'll want to check down here on my CPU usage. In this particular case, it's using around 22% of my CPU. We recommend when you create groups that you keep an eye on that, but it doesn't exceed 70% is our recommendation. If it does, you need to remove one of the cameras from here until you get to a reasonable under 70% CPU usage. So in my case it's okay, but you do need to keep an eye on that because it's different for every PC. So let's say I wanted to create that group. I'll simply right click over one of the videos and I say create group from layout, and I can call this whatever I want. I'll just say my group, for example. Click OK, and now you see I've created one group and it's listed over here. So to open that group, I'll just quickly, this is how you close all video. You right click over the video, close all video. If I want to now start that group automatically, I can click that button and it opens all my cameras. Now I can also set this to open these cameras when I start the software, so I don't have to click this button. And if you want to do that option, you click on the setup icon down here. And I just, before we proceed, I just want to point out the location of the group auto start option is a bit different in the 32-bit version and the 64-bit versions of Freedom. So on the 32-bit version, it's located under the camera group setup tab option, and in the 64-bit version, the option is located under the multi-monitor setup option in system setup. So I'm first going to show you how to do it in the 32-bit version of Freedom. I click on the group setup tab up the top here, and that's my group there. And I've only got one group. If I had multiple ones, I'd select the group that I'm interested in, and then I'd simply tick this so you can have one group auto start when the software starts. So in this case it's going to be that one, so I'm going to apply that. So I've ticked that and applied it, and I'm going to close now. Now on the 64-bit version of Client, I'll just quickly show you how to do that on the 64-bit version of Client. So from Setup, we're in System Setup, and down the bottom of System Setup we've got a multi-monitor. We'll click on the multi-monitor button. So we've got these options here. So the 64-bit supports up to 4 monitors, and I've only got 2 in my case. So to make my group auto start on the 64-bit version, under the Monitor 1 Master and Playback, I'm going to select from the drop down the group that I want to auto start, and that will start automatically. If I click apply, I do have the option to start in full screen if I wish. I'm going to leave that off for the time being. So that will now start automatically when the software starts, and that's for the 64-bit version of Freedom Client. Now to test it, I'm going to go down here to my menu icon down the bottom right and restart the software. And if all is good, the cameras should start like we see here. So that's how you create a camera group, and you can create as many as you like by creating different layouts, as I said, and dragging the cameras into those layouts. But just be very careful, you'll overload your CPU, or sometimes if you've got a poor network, you don't have a pure gigabit network, sometimes the cameras won't come up. And I'll just explain an option here. So at the moment these are what's called just streaming in mainstream, which is the main HD stream. But you do have an option to change this to substream. That's the lower quality stream. So if you noticed, I went down from 20% to around 8 or 9% on my CPU. So that's now using less CPU, and it's also using less network bandwidth. HD video requires a good low latency network, and it should be a gigabit. Now you can, by the way, set the default to the lower quality substream if your network can't handle too many cameras. And the way you do this is going into setup, going into device setup, and under this option here, default live video, it's by default set to auto, which if you're on site will bring up the mainstream. If you're off site, it will bring up the substream, but we can force it to go to substream always when you open it. That's when you have CPU or network bandwidth limitations at your site, and I'd apply that. And when I connect it, although you can't see there on your you can't really see there, it is actually in substream now, not in the main HD stream. So for example, that is the substream. If I want to change it back to mainstream, this particular tile, I could right click over the image and select mainstream, and as you see, that's now changed to the mainstream video. And another thing you may wish to configure after you've installed the Freedom software is the default download folder locations. So in my case, what I might do is under my C drive, I might create a folder called CCTV, and in that folder I might create one called video and another called pictures and logs. Why not? So I've created those 3 subfolders under the C drive and CCTV. In my case, you can choose whatever location you wish, and then to actually tell Freedom about those locations, we click on the setup icon down here, and on this first screen we click on the browse. So this is save capture pictures, so this is for the images. So browse, open my C drive, CCTV, pictures, and the next one is save download paths. This is actually where the video goes. So I'm going to browse my C drive again and video, okay, and for my log files, except this time logs, and apply that. So now, for example, if I wanted to save some pictures, I could right click on here, click on save snapshot, and again, and to see if they're in my download folder, view snapshots, and there they are there. And you'll also see them in this folder here that we just created under pictures in this case. So that worked. Okay, that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching.